And get
Hey, what's going on, guys? We have a special guest today. We have Jason Turner. He's the founder of Emotion Wellness. He's a veteran, a Tillman Scholar, a therapist, a mental health and addiction specialist, an athlete, a neuroscience geek, and an advocate for improving the addiction treatment model. Jason, we're so happy to have you here on the hashtag Clockedin podcast. Jason, what's wrong with the addiction treatment model? Why is this an issue in the first place?
well, thanks for having me. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I will do my best. In my opinion, and what I've seen in the last 21 years, it's definitely improving. The the outpatient mental health model that I am involved in seriously misses out on the client experience. I think for a
Okay.
long time, if you look at addiction, for all of the reasons I like social media, there's 100 others why I don't like it, right? Which there's a lot of things that go with it, but access to information is good. And I feel like it's helping with the mental health stigma. There's more and more talk about it. We're just improving. It's still behind, but we're improving. But when I got started 20 years ago, behavior modification, a lot of shame, a lot of addiction clients were addiction patients were oppressed and mistreated. I mean, I've seen everything from people being thrown out of treatment in the cold with a bag and being told to like think about their behavior for three. It's like a punishment, right? And then when
Yeah.
you want to come back, you come back, and just all kinds of levers of pain and suffering to get people who are in suffering to do something different. And I when I was going to school, and I mean, I got sober when I was 27.
Oh, wow.
And I got sober in 12-step recovery. And for about 10 years, it worked really well. I was all in. I did tons and tons of meetings and helped. I feel like I supported my own recovery by giving it away and talking. And I went to school and I learned about trauma and I learned about the brain. And I had this itch at about somewhere in my early 30s where I just needed to know more. Like, what, there's got to be something else going on. Like, I understand that I'm spiritually sick. I understand that I have what 12-step recovery so accurately depicted was a mental blank spot. So like I'll tell myself I'm not going to drink or use, and then my mind goes blank. Like the reason for not doing it, right? Like I'm not insane. When it comes to drinking, I'm absolutely lunatic, but I won't go play in traffic. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
smart enough. But playing in traffic is actually safer for me than picking up a drink, because the reason that it's insane for me to even think about alcohol is every single time I used it, it burned me. And the result was the same. So I have a lot of evidence, right? It's like if every time you went into some room in your house and you got shocked, you wouldn't go in there anymore, most likely.
I, this tends to happen with a lot of people in regard to realizing who are the people around them and how the people around them affect them. So you
Yeah.
might go somewhere, like it was very interesting. Back in 2020, I ended up traveling, like I left Tampa and I was going and traveling around with my then girlfriend, Madison, who's now my wife. But we ended up traveling and I remember we would go out every single weekend. Like literally when we were home, we would go out in Tampa, we would go out every weekend. And then we end up going on this trip, and it's just the two of us. And it's like, we literally bought beers and no one drank them. And we're like, oh, like, we just don't care. Like, it just became this thing of like, I'm not in love with drink. Like, you know what I mean? And you start to realize these things, and it starts to get you in this place of what is okay and what isn't okay. And you start to realize who you really are without that association around it. Because when you're around it, it can be so traumatizing.
Yeah. And I think for people in my situation, which was disordered drinking, in that there really wasn't enough power anywhere. Like there wasn't enough fear. I mean, I had a prison sentence over my head. I lost my military career. I mean, it got into everything in my life and took it. And there wasn't any piece along the way where I went, oh, that's enough. I'm just going to stop. And even when I committed to stopping, I couldn't stay stopped, and I
Yeah.
would do this thing where I'd be like, oh, okay, I can do it. This time it'll be different. I'm not as angry, or I'm going into it with a different attitude. Or, I remember, God, I've had some amazing, amazing people in my life. And I had some amazing girlfriends along the way that just had to suffer at the hands of my illness and my addiction. And I remember going to treatment for 90 days, being in a pool with a girl that I was dating that she put up with my shit for 2 years. And I remember it had been about 90 days and it was coming up on the weekend and we were in her pool in Tucson. And I remember looking at her and I'm like, I think I'm ready. And like the look on her face was like, it just went like she saw a ghost. And I was like, what's that look for? And she's like, ready for what? I'm like, I'm ready to go out. I'm ready to drink. So it's been 90 days. I'm like, I'm not angry anymore. I'm good. And like went out that night and the exact same shit happened, right? That always happens. You know, it's like, and I'm not going to get into the drama because it's just silly
Yeah.
nonsense. It's sick stuff. But so for me, when I got sober, I was real fortunate. I was with a bunch of good people. And then I started work. I got a call to work with people and I got introduced to a program that was taking kids like on adventures and doing a bunch of cool stuff. And it was really enticing and it was alluring and I was drawn to it. And then I quickly saw that the woman who was running that program, she had a bunch of other stuff that she was doing that didn't feel good. And I didn't know enough about the industry or like,
Yeah.
you know what's right and what's wrong just in your gut, but like I
Yeah.
didn't really know how bad it was. And so along the way, I just saw all these different things. And I ended up, the question that you asked was about what I think is wrong with the industry. And like I ended up leaving the private pay, cash pay model where I was like, was really the program was amazing. When you have more money, you can do more stuff, right? So
Of
like
course.
um we were traveling to like Nepal, India, Peru, Africa, building
Oh, with
schools
these people who
with
were,
with kids, yeah, with like
oh wow.
younger, yeah, taking them to the Grand Canyon, like doing service trips, doing exploration. And then I left there and moved to a small town in northern Arizona and got into what you would call managed care. So it was like treatment that was being handled by paid for by insurance companies. And what happened to a lot of patients is that they went to a program that either was started by somebody who had like a few months sober on their own. It was like 2016, 2015 to
Okay.
about 2018. There's this is an episode for a whole nother show, but you have out of network and in network. And if you're an out
Yeah.
of network program and you get particular policies, you can make quite a bit of money. Like at one point they were paying, this is the weird part about how smart insurance companies are. I mean, they were getting $2,500 for a UA, right? And so if you do the numbers on, you have 50 people in your program and you drug test them,
Yeah.
each of them 3 times a week, and you're getting $2,500 just for the urine. What's 50 times 7,500?
Yeah.
That's a
A
week.
ton of money.
That's a week.
Yeah.
And so
And
you
these
have a
people can't
you have a
even, yeah.
25-year-old kid who was doing heroin and dealing 6 months ago, and now he's got access to unethical but legal money. And so patients were like, I remember conversations being had about patients, and they were referred to by their policy. So that's a
So,
NISHIP, or that's
so
a
the insurance was making the money or the
no, the
patients
the
were?
the providers are making the money, but like
Of
if
course.
you're the one going out to find out who you want in your program, you want the premium, what they call premium policies. So
Yeah.
you can look at an insurance policy basically right out the get. There's certain tells, it'll tell you if that's going to pay well or not. And so
Oh, because it wasn't even them. It was based on these different people so that you can kind of see who would be the best person
yeah, and so like coming out of
for
different
the thing.
areas, like so New York had some really good policies, Florida, California. That's why all these treatment centers are in those states because
Yes.
they pay really well on the out of network. And so basically what I saw was a lot of mistreatment. I saw a lot of abuse. I saw a lot of really just, I mean, my heart was, I went through hell because I was like in this position of feeling like I was part of the problem because you can't be neutral on a moving train, right? So like I'm in this thing and I'm trying to figure out how to make a difference, but everywhere I go, I'm like, this is shit. Like the
So the goal was at this point to make a difference in the treatment world.
No,
Make a
my
difference.
goal was to just like help people. Yeah, I didn't realize how bad it was when I got to this little town in northern Arizona. I didn't
No,
know what
but
I was walking
no, but
into.
my point being here is that you saw the extremely wealthy where they would send their children on these crazy trips and all these things, and then you saw these other people who went the insurance side, and it still wasn't the most ethical thing for them as well, and it wasn't the best
No,
solution.
they were making 10 times more money than the cash pay was paying out. But what was happening was it was fast money. It was like run by a bunch of really unhealthy, sick people who like the minute they got the money were buying Bentleys and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like new money. You the whole story about new money, right? Like you get a bunch of money, you go out and don't know what you're doing with it. So it was just awful. I mean, the stories were there's a movie out, I forget the name of it. but it depicts like what went down, and it's one of the few times in Hollywood where they couldn't have done it. They couldn't have made it worse than it was. Like it's literally as
Yeah.
bad as you could imagine.
But it wasn't for the authentic. It wasn't actually to help the people. It was just these profiting. I
Oh,
got you.
absolutely. There were some programs that were trying to do good stuff for sure. I'm not saying all of them, but in this area, I would say the majority were how do we make the most money the fastest and how do we pack people in? And, programming and considerations for what the state requirements were and all that kind of stuff weren't really considered.
Yeah.
Um, and then the easiest way to answer your question about what needs to change. So traditional group therapy, a lot of people have experience with this, right? So just visualize, what does group therapy look like? I walk into a room, I'm at a center, looks like somebody's grandmother decorated it. No offense to anyone's grandmother. I go into the room. What's the shape of the seating arrangement? It's a circle.
Circle. Yeah.
Okay. And all the chairs are close together.
Yeah.
The walls are white. The dry erase board is white. The markers are
Yeah.
probably faded because nobody keeps up with how soon you have to like change them out. So most people are going to say something to this effect that work in the field. Oh, we meet the client where they're at. Well, where's the client at? If you understand brain science, all day long, I'm being stimulated by this.
Yes.
Okay. Is this black and white? You can put it in
No.
grayscale, but most people don't know how to do that. So all day long, I'm getting vivid colors. I'm on a screen with blue light and vivid colors, right? All
Oh,
day
so you're
long,
saying that the room is just not entertaining and it
that's
doesn't
just
hold people's attention.
yeah, I'm telling you from let's just take the group process and I'll break it down for you.
Just simplify it as
All
much
the
as
ways.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I walk into a group room. Now I have a nervous system that's been using drugs and alcohol for a long time to do what? Most people,
Get feelings. Yeah.
nobody's going to treatment because they're partying too hard. Let's get real. They're going
Yeah.
to treatment because the relief that they seek is not working. It's causing too much trouble and they need a different answer. So
Yes.
the only thing that provides me relief from being close to people,
Yes.
talking about feelings,
Yes.
being bored,
Yes.
right? I'm doing the thing that I'm going to see you. I'm going to treatment to work on this thing that addresses boredom, isolation, and talking about feelings.
Yeah.
And on day one, you put me close to people. You ask me to talk about my feelings, and you give me 3 hours of boredom,
Yeah.
and you wonder why I don't come back.
Because the
So from
experience
a
isn't there. Yeah.
like a clinical standpoint, the engagement's not there. So
Yes.
the traditional model doesn't really give patients a reason to want to come back. Most people, it's hard to tell if a patient gets well because they were going to get well regardless, or if it's because I walked in the building. You get what I'm saying? Like who knows what
Yeah,
the
it
actual
will.
intervention?
It's a big issue. I mean, a lot of people are struggling with not, and we were talking about this before, Jason, that it's not just addiction, it's also depression, anxiety. Like people are dealing with all these emotional challenges, and it's like, how do you overcome this and win this in a positive
Yeah.
way and have that positive environment? Because, I mean, even like, let's go to your story. Like, what was really the moment where you're like, dude, I'm done? Like, what was that change moment? Because there must have been times throughout that experience where you're like, I need a pause. Like, I need to stop. And you express some of those, but like, what was the moment where you're like, dude, I'm really making a change here? And what
Well,
allowed that to happen?
I think for me, when I look back at my personal development mirrors like my business development.
Okay.
I mean, I've been sober 21 years. I had a really unhealthy relationship in Texas for about 3 or 4 years. And lots of stuff that have to do with like inner child, nervous system. A lot of people don't understand that like our primary caregivers, whether that's mom and dad or aunt and uncle or grandparents or the foster care, whatever we grew up in, it creates a template for us. And we learn to be either like anxious, attached, or disorganized or secure. And most people who end up being driven towards drugs and alcohol wouldn't fall under the secure category. Most of them are anxious, disorganized, attachment style. And then when two people have those type of styles together, it can be disastrous, right? So a lot of people's nervous systems, you would think common sense, like prefrontal cortex, logical goes, oh, I had this shit in childhood. I don't want it in my adulthood. But the nervous system doesn't understand that. And the nervous system goes, no, no, we need that stuff from childhood in order to fix it.
Yes.
So I was trapped in this cycle with a woman that was similar. We just had probably the two worst nervous system to line up. And um, I ended up, I was disenfranchised at work, and I had really, it was a personal journey of needing to get to overcome my victim mentality, address imposter syndrome, and bet on myself. I just couldn't, I wasn't able to do that. I was constantly fixing programs, working for people who would make promises. So it's not to blame anybody. Like I ended up at 18 years sober in a Whataburger parking lot with a pistol in my car, figuring out where I could go to end it because I had made poor choices and because I didn't understand I couldn't see my own stuff, and I wasn't taking care. I didn't have a therapist of my own at the time. There's things I wasn't doing. So I'm not here to say, oh, the world just happened and I put myself in that position. I ran for a long time, hiding from what was my true calling, which was like I needed to step into this realm of like building something that actually makes a difference. Whether the world sees it or not, I needed to do that for myself, but I was terrified. So
Absolutely. And if you guys, if the audience isn't catching what he's saying, 3 years ago, that was Jason. Now
two and a half,
Jason's
yeah.
running this. Yeah, now Jason's running the successful business. And like, we're going to dive into more of that in a little bit later in the podcast. But it's just those decisions and those changes really make a big difference. And so once you really bet on yourself, is that what you're kind of getting at or alluding to that?
Well, yeah. So something happened to me. So I had a longtime friend of mine, 20 years, we're both sober. And I just walked out of my apartment, dude. Like I just basically was like, I can't do this anymore with her. And so I walked out and I called my friend, and I was on basically in a spare room at his house. And 18 years sober, 46 years old, broke, not happy. Like this isn't how it's supposed to be. I
Yeah.
see in my mind at the time, I'm seeing like I see all these people, and it feels like they get sober and they do some stuff, and I was being, my mind was lying to me in the sense that like I wasn't really paying attention to either the choices they made, the effort they put in, or whatever. It was like I was just
Oh,
seeing their success.
you thought that the sober was the underlying truth to the success.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was like in the story I was telling myself at the time, which I did some work on, quite a bit of work on, was like I'm 18 years sober. It's not supposed to be like this. I got sober. I should be in a different spot. And then
Yes.
one night I was just sitting with myself, and I'm not gonna say I didn't hear a voice, but it was like the thought. It was a very loud, just intense feeling of, and what kept coming to me was like, dude, nobody's fucking coming. Like there is no bag of money coming out of a armored truck. There's no red carpet. There's no magic lantern. There's nothing. Like you are gonna have to do this, or you're gonna have to end it. And
Yeah.
I was on a spiritual side. My whole life I had what you would call suicide ideation. I've always thought about, oh, I could just pull the trigger. Like whenever it got really bad in my
Hard.
brain, it was like a relief. It was like like a pressure relief. Like
Yes.
if this thing goes to shit, I can always just end it.
That's crazy.
After I moved into his house, timing wise, the work I had, I don't know what, but and I was calling out and wanted something different. It feels to me like God just took that. It just, I no longer I haven't had it since. And in that moment, I felt the voice or the whatever saying nobody's coming. It was like the thing that followed right after was like it has to be you. It just has
Yeah.
to be. So it was this reckoning with myself around truth. And no,
Yes.
I couldn't have it with a friend. I couldn't have it wasn't like anyone was going to get in my face and be like, dude, shake me until I saw it. I had to see it. And the foundation got cracked by the amount of pain and suffering. And I had been carrying that pain for my entire life. And I had been running from it for my entire life. And it caught up to me, thankfully. And I accepted the challenge. And from there, it was like I put myself in the most intense self-help treatment program. I took every bit of science I'd ever read. I took every podcast I ever listened to. I just went all in, and it was like, I'm going to do everything I know and have ever done with clients. I'm going to wake up early sunlight. I'm going to do the cold plunge. You know what I mean? Like I'm
But
going
but I'm laughing because it's like it's so hard as a coach where you recommend all these things and you're like, wait, I gotta hold myself to the fire. I gotta get this thing going.
yeah.
And I think Jason brings up a major point for all of us listening to realize that like you're the only one who cares about your life. Like, yes, you have family, yes, you have friends, yes, you have all this. The truth is no one cares. Like
And
if
even
you
if they do care, Jordan, I think real quick, because this is something that's happened to me and I see this a lot, well-intended advice has thrown a lot of people off course.
Yes. What do you
Because,
mean by that? Dive in.
like I got a group of friends and like if I got a mom that loves me to death and is scared for wants me to protect me, right? Her end goal is keep me safe, but I want to go, my dream is to go jump out of airplanes and fight fires. And I listen to her voice. She's really not telling me what's best for me. She might think so, and she doesn't even want to,
Well,
but she's doing what's best for her.
yeah, and you got to realize that perspective of as a parent, they want to be the protector most of
Even
the time.
friends, even
Yeah,
friends.
no, no, because you have to realize the frame of where you're getting the advice from. If
Yeah.
so, you would never get that advice from someone who really likes jumping out of airplanes. Like you just
or
won't.
or or an unbiased, unattached professional who is just
Yes.
holding up a mirror, which is what really good therapy is. Like
Yeah.
the best therapy in the world or coaching is you have the answers inside you. My job
Yeah.
is to help draw them out. And I don't draw them out with statements. I draw them out with questions.
Yes. And you start to realize that it's not always that we're wrong or that we're right or that this is bad or good, but it's just the whole game is to figure out who you want to be and what makes you happy.
Absolutely.
And the more authentically we're allowed to be ourselves, the better we're going to show up. Like, I could imagine 3.5 years ago, you're not like, oh, dude, I'm going to be on podcasts. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing that. You're just like, I just don't want this feeling anymore. And I want to be more authentically myself, which is it's what we all truly want. It really is
Yeah.
what we all truly want. And everyone has different frames of how they get through there and how they go through that. So for you, what part of that journey, what was the first step? Obviously, you stepped into personal growth yourself, but like what was the first step to get there?
Yeah, I got accountable with my daily practice, and I started saying no. I've been saying yes to everybody since I got sober, and I started saying no. In fact, it tears me up a little bit. So I was a canine handler in the military. I love dogs, right? Like had a cane corso before they were cool. He was 11 years old. I put him down 5 years ago, and um my best friend that I was living with had a dog, and we had two guys that live in the house. He said, "You know how I know that it's not, you know how I know it's the other guy coming in the door, or you know how I know it's you when you come in the house?" And I was like, "How is it? Because you don't say hi to the dog." And I remember telling him, I'm like, "Bro, I got nothing, dude. Like I got nothing. Like I got enough to get from my coaching of CrossFit class." And the one group that I'm doing for special forces guys in therapy. And then between those two groups, all I'm doing is crying and trying to figure out how not to kill myself. Like I don't have anything other than my own energy. I gotta keep it, right? So it started there where it was like hunkering down, only doing for me. And the doorway that opened up was a book called How to Do the Work. Um, and it was about really managing the inner child. And I was doing inner child work with what's called an internal family systems therapist, a beautiful, amazing woman out of Mississippi. I was doing that on Zoom, and I was doing therapy. And I don't know how I paid we talked about this before. I don't know how I paid for my bills. I don't know how I survived, but only thing that mattered was getting myself good. That was it, or well,
Yeah.
maybe good's not the right word, but like, and so all my decisions were like, I don't care about the money. I don't care about prestige. I don't care about anything except getting myself healthy and pursuing what I know I need to pursue. That was the first step.
Yeah, and when you make that definitive decision and then actually put action behind it, I think it makes a world of difference. Because it's one thing to talk about an idea, it's another thing to actually execute.
Oh,
And the
absolutely.
more, the more we put into action and put those things towards it. So like, for example, like the New Year's happened, and I know this is kind of deviating a little bit, but my goal was to read a book every single day. Not read an entire book, just read one page. Because I know I'm not perfect, and I'm like, if I could read two, three, four, 5 pages, then I'd be better than if I didn't read before. So
Yeah,
that's kind of my thing. And I take the action, and even if it's nighttime, I'm like, okay, we read our one page and we go to bed. But it's these little things that where you set yourself up, you hold yourself
absolutely.
accountable, and then you do it. Then you have more trust in yourself. So I'm sharing like I'm sharing Jason had a huge example. I'm having a very minor example, but if you're listening, you could do anything you want and it can be super minor, but you start to trust yourself and start to believe that you're actually in control.
So what's wild is, so in the book, um, How to Do the Work, it's make a promise to yourself that you can keep every single day and keep it. So my very first promise was, so picture like not necessarily linear, but kind of a straight line. The house I was living in is in the middle. And on one side is the CrossFit gym that I work at. And on the other side is the hospital I work at. Right. So I go from the hospital to the gym. That was my schedule. I worked in the afternoons and then coached at night. So I'd stop by the house to change and do my thing. Well, I was like looking around my room when I started to look at what promise to make. And it was like, dude, you're a fucking 40, you're a 46-year-old man. Like, put all of no clothes on the floor. Literally, that was the promise. That was it. And I did that every day, no matter what. My gym clothes went in the hamper. I like, there was never a clothes on my floor. And that's what started it, man. It was that promise to myself. And I started to build off that. And then the promises started getting bigger. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to find the $1 million I need to get my shit started. I'm going to find this. And it just snowballed into like nothing but, I was like, I went from feeling stuck and redlining constantly to having nothing but traction.
Yeah. And truly, one of the crazy things is that it's all momentum. Like, oh, like when you start building the momentum, it really gets things going. And I saw someone talk about this, the idea of vacations versus traveling. Where traveling, like you're still committing to doing the work and committing to doing better, while vacation, you're just taking the time off.
Yeah.
You literally said they were talking about that, and they literally, I mean, it makes so much sense that if you have momentum, keep the momentum. Don't not respond to someone because you're like, dude, it's my vacation time. I have private
Yeah,
time. I can't
absolutely.
talk.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, dude, just keep going. And because if you do that, you're giving yourself the breaks each and every day while that's all happening. So I think it's so important for us to do that, where it's okay to work. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's a
Yeah.
good thing to have goals and work towards those goals.
Well, people talk about work-life balance a lot, and I don't think there is such a thing. Not as a business owner. There is no way to have balance. It may be when you sell it, you know what I mean? But like building a business, no, there's no balance.
Yeah. No, absolutely, because you got to be all in. So tell us, what is emotion wellness? And how did you come up with this concept?
Well, thanks for asking that question. I think for me, not I think I know it was born out of the struggle that I had, right? So I'm not really a guy who happiness is cool and I'm not knocking it. I'm not somebody who ever really woke up one morning and said, I really want to be happy. That's just not, and that sounds bizarre. And I'm not trying to say that for effect. The question or the statement that I say a lot is I want purpose.
Yeah.
I have to have a purpose. And so when I looked around at when I was making my decision to go all in on myself, the big question you have to ask is like, well, I'm not going to go with something I don't know. That's kind of not that it can't be done, but I'm not going to leverage skills I don't have. I'm going to leverage what I do have.
Yeah.
The one thing I know, and I know it better than anything else, and I know it better than most people walking the planet, is how to get people moving. I I just have a thing. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be bravado about it. There's no fucking arrogance in that whatsoever. It's just a fact. Like I
Yeah.
level people up wherever I go. I was
Yeah.
doing it to my own detriment prior to. Now I figured out the sauce to level you up while, you know what I mean? Like I don't have that issue anymore. So I knew I had to do my own program if I was really going to make a difference. And while I want to help the individual, that's the main goal. The more individuals that I can help more people if I can change the industry.
Yes.
And
100%.
so I knew I had to go all in on my concept, which I've been forging for like 12 or 15 years. I developed an experiential therapy process that uses the neuroscience of physical activity, getting the heart rate to certain uh, beats per minute. Also, while infusing, therapeutic, psychological concepts. So we are basically a mental health facility that fuses together physiology and psychology, where most people are only dealing with psychology from a treatment standpoint, meaning you walk into a therapist's office, most places don't have you exercising, don't have you getting hormetic stress or changing the climate of the room or doing any of that. They're going to sit in a chair and you're going to have a conversation, right? And they're going to give you suggestions that involve physiology. They're going to say, hey, it might be good to just like it might be good to journal. You might want to take a walk. They're going to make suggestions, and then you're going to leave that office. Most people don't ever do anything that they talk about in the session.
I'm smiling because I literally sit there and think about like when do things change? Things change at emotionally high states. So an emotionally high state is the complete opposite of sitting on a couch, Like it is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
But if you're jumping from sauna to cold plunge to running around to getting to this point of like, I want to quit so badly, I'm in so much pain, blah blah blah, and then you have a breakthrough. And it's
Well,
these places,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, there's like order of operations, right? So in math, like you got to do certain things before you do other, right? Parts
yeah,
of that.
absolutely.
Math's not my forte, but I remember that from school because I didn't know how to do it. But um, when I think about, so a lot of people will say things like, "Well, yeah, the suffering addict has been doing nothing but activating, so they need to calm down." But I disagree completely in the beginning. There's no person who's coming down off crystal meth that wants to fucking meditate. There's not a single one. They're not going to benefit from that. What they're going to benefit from is learning how to use their breath to both activate and then settle in, right? So the deactivation. They're also going to instantly feel better because of the dopaminergic response produced by physical activity, as well as adrenaline, norepinephrine.
Yeah,
And they're going to instantly start to rewire pathways. It's one of the most powerful
yeah,
pieces of neuroplasticity is physical activity.
yeah,
So I've got a brain disorder. This is the part of the business that I didn't understand coming as I was coming up. We are literally treating brain disorders, but we don't take images of the brain. We don't, most people that work at a mental health addiction treatment center do not know anything about the brain.
yeah,
They could not tell you the components of the brain involved with the reward system. They could tell you dopamine, but they
yeah.
don't know the rest of it. So, and there just hasn't been this information out there. It hasn't been it's been the standard. We're going to do talk therapy. We're going to push you towards the 12 steps. We're going to have you in a room that's very, not very stimulating with lack of colors. So at our center, we have LED lights everywhere. We sit on the floor. So the dopaminergic response from physical activity. So the gym floor is a rolled rubber. It's got blue specks in it and it has a particular
Oh wow.
feel and smell. So for someone who doesn't really understand, right? So if you were to take like in addiction, we talk about triggers, right? People, you've heard that word trigger.
Yeah,
So
of course.
a trigger is the same thing as in trauma. We would call that an association. So
Yeah,
generally speaking, it's going to be a cue for the brain to
yeah,
do something, right? So if I'm a person who, let's just take something benign because I don't want to trigger anybody who's listening, but like if I'm a marijuana smoker and and the pipe it's a glass pipe and it has a particular color, that glass pipe is going to, when my brain sees it, my brain is going to start the chemical process. So
yeah,
if you ask any heroin addict that was
yeah.
ever been dope sick when they start to feel better, the answer is not going to be when they get high. It's going to be
Before
when the dealer says they got it.
that.
That's when they feel better because the brain is producing the opioids. It's
Yeah,
starting the process because it knows this drill. So if I go into a gym and we have a very specific system that we use to get people involved and have a powerful experience, and it's all done in groups, they have this powerful physical experience that actually addresses low self-esteem and insecurity.
oh, that's awesome.
So they start to feel better psychologically. They start to feel
Yeah,
better physiologically because their chemistry's already up.
yeah.
We fuse the psychology with that higher state of dopamine. And then they go up front to the group room. Well, the group room has the same rubber flooring.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I don't have to, every single time somebody comes in my center, they don't have to start in the gym in order to get that same effect. Now I can have them start in the group room. But guess what happens when the brain smells the rubber? It started when they
Same
were on their
thing.
way to the center.
That
It's the
confidence.
same thing as a trigger where they're getting,
Yeah,
we call them like the book, How to Do the Work. She has a great term. It's called glimmers. So
yeah.
like a glimmer is like the same thing as a trigger, but it's moving you in a positive direction. So now I'm
Yes.
getting activated to move, right?
Yes.
So what I think separates us from any program out there is just because I'm actually a bit of a lunatic with this and I've had to tone it down. The intentionality. So
Yeah.
the best compliment I've been given in the 2 years that we've been open is a therapist knew exactly what I was up to, walked in my building, and before she left, she said, "You literally thought of everything." She's like, "This place is it just from the time you walk in, it just knocks people in the jaw because what's an addict who's been to a bunch of programs is having to go to another treatment center. What do you think their attitude is walking in the door? Oh
Not
fuck, I
this
don't.
again. Yeah.
Yeah, they walk in the door. Everything's modern. It's black concrete, polished. It's wood and metal. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
lot of features that are like they stand out. It looks like a place you would spend $800 a month to go to be a member.
So how do people become like how do people join?
So we do, obviously we'll take, we're one of, we're one of the few places that'll still take cash. More and more places are saying they don't want cash, but private pay, you could also, from an assessment, a mental health assessment, it's called a BPS or a biopsychosocial. Um, and basically you qualify from a therapist interviewing you and looking at your symptoms, putting together, a diagnosis, and then that gets submitted to your insurance. And if your insurance is carved out in a way that it has mental health benefits, we're in network with all the major carriers. So I wanted ease of access, right? Like we have different tiers of treatment. So I have like significantly high levels of engagement. Those are generally going to require private pay because insurance just doesn't cover them.
As
But
high as it gets. I know what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
but for the IOP services, the client's getting, I mean, you have to think on their insurance, right? Now,
Yeah.
every insurance is different, but the insurance is paying. They're getting access to cold plunges, saunas, basically personal training. They're getting case management. They're getting physical activity. We give everybody, do you know what the Aura ring is? It's like the
Yes,
bio,
I have a
yeah.
Fitbit, but I
Okay,
know the
so
Oura Ring.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't have Aura rings, but we have a company that built their own and it monitors patient data. And that's actually connected to a 24-hour hotline for patients. So it'll send them to an app on their phone. It'll send them messages based on their biometric data. So if they have like a spike in their heart rate, it'll ask them if they're okay. If they have,
Wow.
if an anomaly shows up, it'll signal a report. So we're doing a lot of stuff that we don't get reimbursed for, but it all adds to the
The
efficacy of the
experience.
program. Yeah, and helping people get better. That's
Yeah. It's incredible. And where is this place?
in San
Oh,
Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio, Texas. Very
Soon
cool. And
coming to a city near you. That's for
you think
sure.
so?
Yeah, oh yeah, we're en route. We're a year and a half in. We're doing number two in
Oh,
about,
really?
yeah. So
That's awesome.
yeah, we've basically been able to fund ourselves like the whole time. So
We love that.
yeah.
Because then you have control
Yep.
of this
Yeah, and
of
what
the
I
entire
like is, I mean,
process.
we were positive cash flow 6 months in. So
Incredible. Incredible. That's awesome. So let's do a quick thing, because I know we got a few minutes left. But between who you were 3.5 years ago to where you are today, like what advice do you think would be applicable to people for them if they want to make a change? Because obviously it's incredible what you've done. So it's how can someone else make that change? And like what you recommended the book. Is there anything else you think would be paramount to, or maybe some tips or tricks?
um yeah, I think, man, there's a lot I would say to that. Um the person that's sitting across from you right now and the one that was in a parking lot, like I was very close to pulling the trigger. I mean, it's not for dramatic effect. There's so many parts of me that are the same in a good way. Like I have a big heart. I'll give the shirt off my back. I'll do the right thing. I help people. I'm a business guy, but I'm also like, I'm not that really focused on the money. I gotta be honest with you. Like I'm more focused on, like I have people all day long in our center be like, hey, I'm struggling this month. I don't know if I can come up with the co-insurance. Like, can you cut me a break? And it's like, just get your ass to if you will do every single group this month and you don't miss, I won't charge you. You know what I'm saying? Like if you commit, I will be on board. Like I've always been that guy. And it's
Yeah.
probably why I suffered so much because the people who have I was really sensitive as a kid. I still am to this day. My mindset is what is different. So I no longer get hit with challenges and internalize it in a way that deteriorates me. But here's the thing. I did over ear headphones. I did fucking yoga. I did retreats. I did every fucking master. Like I did it all. Right. There is a guy, you should get him on your podcast. He's amazing. His name's Mark England, and he created a coaching model called the Enlifted Method, and it's about the power of words. But here's the difference. I never went to a therapist and wrote ever. Start asking that question. You know people who go to therapy?
Dumb.
So do you know people who are going? Like, do you know people who
Yeah, I
seek
know
therapy?
a few of my
All right,
friends.
so ask them, hey, does your therapist have you write?
Okay, I will.
I'll be shocked.
I
And then
doubt it.
ask them if they say, "Oh yeah, they had me write." Like it's usually going to be a journal. Say, "Have they ever had you write your story?"
Oh wow.
Because here's the thing: my personal narrative, the inner critic, was so loud. I mean, honestly, Jordan, I knew I was fucked. Because I can put it together. Like I can walk into a business that's a failing treatment center. I know how to fix it. I was in the military. I know how to like I have all these skills, but I had a mindset that was scarcity, and it was negative, and it was riddled with shame. So the advice I give to anyone is if you really want to change your mindset, buckle up for a very intense battle. I don't know how long it's going to take. It took me 9 months of all out war. But if you're not going to write, it's going to take forever. It's going to suck. Like you have to put it on paper.
Yes.
There's this magic. I don't, and maybe it's not just, I don't mean just writing. I'm talking on a computer or whatever. I do sessions with people on Google Drive. We do writing. We'll take words and narratives. Like, how much time do we have? We have 2 minutes or what? Can we?
Yeah, of course.
Let
Dive
me give
in.
you. So let me give you this. This is one. This is a game we play, and it's not anywhere near the depths that this thing can go because I've done this. I've done this work writing stuff out for people. I've done it with like really traumatic stories of like suicides and deaths and finding
Yeah.
siblings. And so it has to do with slowing the story down on paper and breathing. But it's an example of the power of words, right? So if I
Yeah.
were to say to you, Jordan, you could do this with your clients or your people you coach. It's a really
Yeah.
powerful game. You could say, I would say to you, hey, fill in the blank. I should blank. So what would you say?
Part of me is I should be working. Like I know I'm working right now, but the fill in the blank, it's this like, am I doing enough? Like
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm getting towards.
That's a story, right?
Yeah.
That's a story and it has meaning, right? Okay, great. So when you say I should be working, tell me what you notice feeling wise.
Um, I mean, part of it I question like if it's a so I mean, I just have so many conversations and I have to sit in this place. Like part of me sits in the gratitude of like, oh, I'm grateful I can have all these conversations. And part of it's like that conversation did not move the needle forward for me. So it's like you run both of these things where am I wasting time when I could have like a very nice breakfast with my wife or when I'm trying to call random people to see if they'll join my coaching thing. You know
So
what
when
I
you
mean?
say I
So
should be working, like what emotion comes up?
I more of I feel like it's more not a fear, but it's more of a timing situation where it's like you want things to happen faster. Like sometimes I feel the embrace, which is like I know I'm good and and I'm doing the right
Yeah.
activity, or sometimes it's like I feel like too like a seesaw, like kind of
Would you say
teetering
it's
where
like a little bit of pressure?
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to yeah.
So cross out, visualize you've written this out on paper, visualize yourself crossing out should and write could, and then say that statement.
Oh, I could be working.
Mm.
It feels like you feel a relief.
Oh,
Literally.
damn. Like we're just talking one word. Look at what just happened
I
to me when you was
know, I
laughing.
know. No,
Just
but I
one
lo
word.
I love this stuff because it's so important for people. Like the way you speak about yourself and like that's why like I'm constantly on this where it's like, hey, an opportunity comes up and you're like, well, I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, just say thank you and like we'll see how it plays out. Because if you do that, you're at least leaving the area open to this positivity. And when
Yeah.
you're so hard on yourselves, like, I'm always no, it's always no, like it's funny. Yeah, no, I mean, like I was on the phone with someone and I was like, oh, maybe we should do like a sauna cold plunge. And their default thing is a no. Like their default's a no because they're like, I want to save money. And I'm like, yeah, but like you should definitely come. Like it'd be a lot of fun. And they're like, okay, okay. Like, because there is someone who can definitely afford it, but they're like, money is prime. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, and that's the challenging for a lot of people is like their default response is that they don't realize. And you just
Well,
showed me some of mine.
belief's always stronger than fact, and the stories
Yeah.
that we tell create the mindset, right? So there's
Yes.
two more steps to this process. I want you to say, take out could and say and put in can.
Oh, I can work.
I can work more.
Yeah.
Now do this. I can work more because.
I can work more because I have the energy. I'm positive. I can support
Oh,
myself. Like,
damn. Now
yeah.
I can't. So awesome. So that's an affirmation. You take that into like a mirror and you start doing that 7 times a day. That's going to
Yeah.
have some real validity versus like the guy who gets told by the therapist who hates himself, I want you to go home and sit in front of the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself 10 times. All that fucking guy's going to get is more shame and fucking misery.
Wow.
Think about, so when they say, what is the mother of all skill?
Repetition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I am a guy who does not like myself and I'm in the mirror and I'm saying I love myself and I elicit a shame response, well, what am I practicing? What am I repeating? I'm firing the shame receptor. I'm firing the shame
Yeah.
pathway. Oh, so I'm actually hurting myself.
Oh, wow.
But if I can get to the meaning of something, we
Yeah.
could, so the should game is amazing because we call it a should detox. No one ever says, oh, uh, I should try almond milk instead of, like, it's always going to be a place that they're stuck on, right? And so
Yeah.
you get to the end result where it's like, I can do this because, and then you come up with this positive attribute about who you are. And then I would
Yeah.
say, your thing is you're pressured because you have choices. So what if
Yeah.
we took, and then the work I would do with you as a coach, I would say,
Yeah.
hey, I would have it on the screen. So I would say, I can work more, right?
Yeah.
Because, and then you said, because I have the energy, and I would take out because I have the energy, and I would cross out energy and I would put options. So try that statement.
I can work more because I have options.
Yeah.
100%.
Look at your face. Do you see how it affects the emotion? Like
Yeah.
that's the charge that most people, so that's the work that got me unstuck.
I
This is
love
the
it.
process that when I say writing and looking at language, and then every day where my inner critic and my subconscious would come back and want to whip my ass, I was pulling out affirmations from the languages that I had done exercises the day before. And then I would take the affirmation that I pulled from a statement of meaning that had emotion for me, and I would say, fuck you, this is what we're doing.
I can work because I have options.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. I love it. That's awesome. I wish it wasn't. We'll have to do a second one. We'll have to do
Yeah,
a
dude.
second one. But Jason, where can people learn more about you? Where can they learn about emotion?
So we have our website's just emotionwellness.com.
Okay.
We have an Insta. Our Insta is emotion.wellness.therapy. And then Facebook is Emotion Wellness Therapy. We have a YouTube channel. If you go on YouTube and search Emotion Wellness, but you got to put the hyphen in, it'll bring up
Yeah.
our YouTube channel. And then we have a podcast that I do, just like you got yours, that we do. Our 3 pillars are resources, education, and personal stories of triumph. So that's a great place to. Our YouTube channel's probably got the most. And our website has a bunch of videos of, like, we host events and we raise
Yeah.
money for nonprofits and stuff like that. So,
Absolutely. I'll put all of that in the show notes. And I just want to say thank you so much. This was
oh man,
awesome.
thanks for having me, dude. Yeah, I'm glad we got to finally do it. So,
Absolutely.
thanks for letting me mess around with you a little bit on the should game. So.
I love it.